All right, fellas. Super Bowl rematch. Here we go. Monday Night Football, Week 11. Fantasy football, we got the Eagles going on the road to face the Kansas City Chiefs. It is a 2.5-point spread, I believe, for the Kansas City Chiefs there at Arrowhead. Big Taylor Swift game, I would imagine, because both Kelsey bros playing each other. So, Donna's going to be in the crowd and stuff. Well, let's get an over-under on the amount of Taylor Swift fans going on
Dude,
here. I actually have no idea if she's going to be at the game,
uh,
but it's in Kansas
she-
City. I would imagine she'll probably be there.
so this got marketed, and I mean it's a brilliant marketing plan from the NFL. You want to appeal to the women, you want to appeal to the diehard. Like we're gonna watch regardless. We got to get more people watching the game. It's gonna be hectic. Apparently, the entire Swift family's going there. Fucking the Kelseys are going there. They're broadcasting every little bit of it. Like I wouldn't be shocked if we saw a reference of it probably every 3 minutes of game time. That might even be a low bar.
Yeah, I could totally see it being like a big fixture of the whole thing there.
Oh yeah, no, it'll be fascinating to see how much they cover it. But not really because it'll start to get annoying real quick.
Yeah. We got Jared in the chat talking bets. I'm actually gonna build out a parlay live on here, so we'll kind of work through what we're looking at here. So Kelsey, 100+ yards today and a touchdown. Lock it in. He loves the T Swift narrative. Yeah. I mean, no doubt that he's going to be balling for his gal there. So I don't hate
it. Kelsey over probably has to be like the highest amount of like place bets, right? At home, off a bye, with his girlfriend in the crowd, playing against his brother with his entire family there. Like if the guy doesn't go ballistic, that has to be one of the biggest upsets of all time.
Yeah, he's gonna get peppered for at least like 12 targets, I would imagine. And I'm already like building out the parlay, and I'm gonna go Kelsey alt receiving yards 80+ in the actual bet.
Damn, fair play.
Up 10 with Swift going against AJ Brown full PPR. Yeah, full PPR sketchy, man. AJ Brown's been a monster, so I would give you probably a 30% chance you win that. You got a 10-point cushion. If Swift gets you to like 15, you should be all right. But
a little bit more than that. Because I mean, like assuming Swift gets 10 to 15, you're still looking at 20.
Yeah, I mean, projection wise, AJ Brown shouldn't be 10 points higher than Swift in the projections. He's probably 6 points higher, whatever. Yeah. So I would say you got a 40% chance of winning. We'll give you 40%.
Yeah. Where do you guys view Jamar Chase as rest of the season, and do you prefer the risk or Chase, assuming Zay Jones plays? Wait, what?
I think he means do you prefer Ridley or Chase, assuming Zay Jones plays?
I mean, I'm still going with Chase.
Yeah, I would still go with Chase as well, but it was encouraging to see what Calvin Ridley did this week.
For reference, I mean, like we're still touching upon the rest of the season rankings. Those will be updated in swift time. Where are you at with Jamar Chase? Because currently I have him at 12, and
that's where I have him as well. But I think you can reasonably make the argument to have him a little bit lower than that if you wanted to put some of the high end number 2s ahead of him. But like, I think I still trust that he can be like a high end wide receiver 2 rest of the year.
If Kupp's ready to come back this week, he'll go back above him as well. I was kind of factoring the age thing. I think you had Kupp higher as well. I believe you already have him higher than Chase.
Yeah, I already do.
Okay. That's the one I'm like still iffy on. I kind of want to see more information. That's just being a little bit more cautious with the older player and the wear and tear on that ankle, given the fact that was already a previous issue for him. But like around that range, I would say top 15 if you're bearish on him. If you're really positive that Jamar Chase, superstar player, can overcome, I would say the highest you could probably put him at this point is like 10.
Yeah, that's probably about right.
Yeah. But yeah, we're all caught up on supers for now. We can start at the top.
Yeah, Jason says, I need Kelsey for less than 10.88. Yeah, I'll give you a 5% chance of that happening. You got Dude, Swifty at the game.
He might get that in the first quarter, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he might get that on the first drive, realistically. And I have 146 more points than anyone on the team this week and might lose. Yeah, I mean, everybo's got 1 week every year where they're going to have like 147 points in a loss. And, they're gonna kick the rest of the league's ass by 20 and still lose.
Yeah, for sure.
It happens.
Got where we left off.
Sharv says, I need Swift to outscore Pacheco down by 0.5 points in PPR. Yeah, I mean, it's basically a pick 'em at that point. In PPR leagues, I would take Swift for sure.
I'm sorry, I'm not letting it happen because you have Swift, I have Pacheco in our matchup.
Yeah, facts. I guess you're not gonna be cheering for unless Rashee Rice gets there for you. I don't know.
Hopefully, the guy actually plays snaps.
Yeah, no kidding. I need a Mahomes masterclass tonight. I personally have bet the under on Mahomes' passing yards, so I will lean on the side that the Eagles defense holds up a little bit, get some revenge on the Chiefs for taking out their Super Bowl dreams.
For sure. Half PPR. I mean, for the record, I have Chiefs spread as my lock of the week. For the record, half PPR, Laporta, Kincaid plus Waddle plus Brees for Tyreek Olave. So Laporta, Waddle, and Brees. Give me Tyreek and Olave. I don't have to think twice about that. Tyreek and Olave all day.
Yeah, I'm going to take Tyreek and Olave there as well.
All day, baby. Especially considering you have whichever tight end you don't trade still on the roster. Smash.
Yeah.
Ugh. Heartburn.
I need the other Swift not to be at the game. Yeah, literally. Not great. Thoughts on Puka and Dynasty? Puka is like a top 15 Dynasty wide receiver for me. It was an interesting chat with Harmon. Harmon's very adamant that he should be in the 20s of Dynasty rankings because, he's doing his job well, and, his job is, and he's like clearly a good player, but he's like, am I ready to put him into like the range of Chris Olave, Jalen Waddle types? Absolutely not. Not even, willing to put him up in the range of Zay Flowers from this own class. And he still has JSN ahead of him as well in his Dynasty rankings. Again, just one guy's opinion, but I think it does go to show you that the guy that watches all the film on these wide receivers is like, and again, we always preach like talent over situation at wide receiver in Dynasty. And Puka's situation could change quickly. If Matthew Stafford retires, if Sean McVay retires, like there's a lot of things that could change about that situation. And I'm kind of on the side of Harmon that I don't think we will ever see Puka Nacua produce to this level ever again. Like the first 9 weeks of this season, how dominant he's been, I think we're talking about a 13 to 15 PPR point per game receiver for the next couple of years of his career, which is still really good. And at a young age, that's a great Dynasty wide receiver, but I don't think he's posting 20 points a game like he's been doing.
Yeah, 20 points per game would seem optimistic. I'm still higher on him, respectively, given just how good the situation is at this current point.
Like, I still prefer Drake London to Puka Nacua.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a conversation. At least it's the real life talent versus the fantasy point opportunity scoring perspective. Again, I'm still higher on Puka. I still think he's a good player. I don't know. I think he's in the perfect spot for his skill set.
No, I do too. But that's stuff can change quickly, and I stink. Even though I just took a shower. I do not stink. But with Puka Nacua, like his situation in Dynasty could change quickly, and even if it doesn't change, I still think he ran hot, relatively speaking, with Cooper Kupp out of the lineup. And even if his situation stayed the same for the next 2 to 3 years, I still don't think that production is going to hold up. Just because of how dominant it was. Like we had games with him getting 20 targets. Like I just don't think that's going to happen again.
Fair. Hope you're having a good day. Yeah.
Definitely better than last Monday when I had a camera up my ass. So I'll give you that.
Yeah. By the way, I saw somebody comment. I was laughing today. I saw somebody comment on the live stream, like that we did this morning, and they were like, Bush had his colonoscopy last Monday, and Diggs gave me one on Sunday. Down 30. I have Hurts and Pacheco. So, I mean, I don't know kicker scoring relative, but let's just say he's in the 6 to 10 point type of range kickers. So then basically you're looking at 36 to 40 combined between Hurts and Pacheco. Give you like a 35% chance. Because I mean, that's baking in that
40% chance. I think we get a 25 point game out of Jalen Hurts tonight.
Yeah, and then you need 15 from Pacheco.
You need a couple.
What's the scoring? Full PPR, I mean, I guess it matters less for a guy like Pacheco. He doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, like, is it a 6 point per passing touchdown league? Is there any kind of accelerators for Jalen Hurts to have a monster game? I give you, that's actually 35 is probably fair. I give you a 35% chance of winning that.
Yeah.
Over under times they show / talk about T Swizzle. I'm setting the line at 31.5. I would say the reasonable line for the amount of times they talk about Taylor Swift / Pandora is probably like 8.5.
That's actually funny because didn't I not mention like every 3 minutes? And if you do the math there,
that would be about right.
30 times.
I was thinking about that. Times if they were doing it every 3 minutes.
Right. Sorry.
Yeah, there you go. So he's saying
Okay,
it's going to
fair.
be more than every 3 minutes.
Wow, every 2 minutes.
Yeah, Andrew says Russell Wilson trade value in Dynasty. Well, this is an interesting conversation, honestly, because Russell Wilson has been pretty productive and he's looked at least like his old self to the point that, Russell Wilson versus Kirk Cousins and the other aging quarterbacks, there's absolutely no separation between those guys now, at least the way I look at it. And who knows, man? Russell Wilson has often said he wants to play till he's 45. Like, I don't think that there's a reason to believe that he's going to retire anytime soon. So I think, trade value in Dynasty, like with how good this class is, do I want to give up a late first round pick for Russell Wilson? Probably not.
Early
But would
2.
I do it if I really needed a quarterback and, maybe I could get a 2 back, a late 2 or something like that on top of Russell Wilson? I think that's probably about fair.
What's the separation for you between Russell Wilson and Jared Goff?
In terms of value or in terms of my rankings?
Valuation. In terms of rankings, I have Goff at 18 and Russ at 20 for the time being. But realistically, guys like Deshaun Watson are going to be going down with the new update. I still would probably take a guy like Will Levis just because of the upside case of the potential value increase. But like Justin Fields going to go higher. Bryce, yeah. So I mean, realistically,
it's funny you
quarterback
mentioned that
17-ish.
in our full disclosure, quick plug here, we do have a Dynasty trade value chart on our Dynasty Rankings manifesto. So if you guys go to it, if you have access to it, you can see that the names that Danny just mentioned actually are all like relatively in the same range. Deshaun Watson was valued as a mid to late first rounder. He probably moves down to the late first round tier now, given the injury
lower,
that he suffered.
Probably closer to like an early to mid 2 at this point. I'm actually starting to get concerned.
Yeah, I'm getting a little concerned as well. I'll give you that for sure. Let me just say, like here in the mid to late first rounder tier, that would leave only Will Levis in that territory. But I also think that he probably belongs to go down a little bit as well into the late first rounder tier because, there was the upside that he just was going to be like a great quarterback right away. And he's shown to be like, he's not an elite quarterback by any means. So for me, I think both of those guys belong in that late first round area. And the guys in the late first round area are Jared Goff and Sam Howell, which again, maybe you wouldn't give up a late first rounder for those guys, but I think in most super flex leagues where quarterbacks have a lot of value, that's probably about what they're worth. Russell Wilson is the next rated guy for me in the rankings at an early second rounder plus. So that's again, kind of about what his Dynasty trade value would be. In a 12-team super flex start 10 league, that's like a pretty standard super flex league. That's probably about what Russell Wilson's worth. An early second rounder plus a third or a small piece or something like that.
So while we're talking some hypothetical values, because I agree with what you said there, let's get into some of the. We'll get into some more comments. I just want to like touch your brain on this because I kind of know where I'm thinking about it. But how are you like evaluating the top 15 guys? Because I think Justin Fields and Bryce Young would be the next 2, depending on the order. If you're a more win now team, maybe you want.
I have Fields higher than. I think you have to put Fields higher than Bryce, just simply
the production.
We're talking fantasy production here, and like fantasy production wise. Even if Bryce Young becomes the better quarterback, if Justin Fields is a starting quarterback for the next 5 years, like the guy runs so much that he's probably going to be better than Bryce Young the whole time. So I have Justin Fields labeled here as a first rounder plus as his value. And that is also what I have labeled as Bryce Young. And they are immediately Bryce Young and Justin Fields right ahead of Deshaun Watson, Will Levis, Jared Goff, Sam Howell, and Russell Wilson, the guys that I just mentioned there. And they are within the same tier as Brock Purdy and Dak Prescott for me in terms of overall trade value.
So, okay, that's interesting because I personally would probably have Purdy, Prescott closer to a guy like Tua than that area personally.
Yeah, but I think given the surrounding talent with Tua and the insulation of like he was a great prospect with great draft capital, like he's basically Brock Purdy on crack because he's the same type of quarterback, only has better insulation in his situation because he was a high draft pick.
Yeah. And I mean, Prescott's the interesting one because it's like if he was 26, you can make the argument that he would be just a tier cut above. But the fact that he's 30, you kind of have to build that into the equation there. Because
I mean, if he was 26, he would probably be in the Anthony Richardson, Kyler Murray, Tua Tagovailoa tier, which is how I have them ranked at this current point in time. Maybe you could argue because of the win now appeal that Kyler Murray belongs over Anthony Richardson. But I think thinking long term, I actually I would prefer Anthony Richardson to Kyler Murray based on what I saw.
Funny you mentioned them. So I'm touching on these as well. I have them ranked at 9 and 10 respectively, with Kyler at 9 and Anthony Richardson as 10. Simply because I feel like more teams would use a Kyler Murray right now as opposed to an Anthony Richardson. So therefore, I think if the valuation was on the trade block, like who would fetch more, I think it would probably slightly lean Kyler.
Yeah, I think if Richardson was healthy too, I don't think
Oh,
like
yeah.
we could be talking about Richardson like
With
higher
Stroud.
than Stroud even potentially if Richardson had stayed healthy, because we know, from the way fantasy points are calculated, that Anthony Richardson has an inherent advantage the way he runs the football. So yeah, that would be that range closing it out. And then obviously CJ Stroud is I don't have him, so
He's
I don't
my
know
6
where
right
you
now.
have CJ Stroud. Do you have
6.
CJ Stroud in the tier with Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and Justin Herbert, or
I
are
am
you
ranked
like
above
me?
Lamar.
You have him above Lamar?
I have him in that tier. Yeah, I have him
Yeah,
above
I
Lamar
can't do that.
6 and
I have a
7.
mini tier behind, like ahead of the Anthony Richardson Kyler tier, but behind the Lamar Jackson,
I don't think
Justin
you can
Herbert,
tear
Joe
him with
Burrow
Trevor
tier.
Lawrence. I don't think you can tear him with Trevor Lawrence. He's been better than Trevor
I have him
Lawrence, and
ahead
he's
of Trevor
2 years
Lawrence, but
younger.
I have him in the same tier as Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I think he's got to be the tier above. He's 22 years old, man, and he's
Yeah,
producing
Trevor Lawrence
at a
is
top 10 level.
24, and he just
Oh,
had a great game, and I expect him
no
to
doubt.
turn things around.
But I think it's closer that Stroud ends up like where we were thinking about Burrow prior to the injury, a lot more than I have the confidence that Trevor Lawrence would moving
Yeah,
forward.
I honestly, I think that Lawrence can do the same. If Lawrence has a great end to the season, I think he could
Yeah,
legitimately be the dynasty quarterback 3. Like
he
he
could
has
be.
still that same upside that he always had.
He could be. Now, I will say probably 4 is the ceiling for me, just because
Yeah,
I
I mean
do think
Hurts is
at this point
probably ahead of him still, but
the long term situation with the contract extension and the fantasy
the
production
weapons
he
that he
gives.
has, yeah,
Yeah,
no, that's fair. I mean Burrow's got to be moving down below Herbert
yeah.
and Jackson, and potentially even Lawrence and Stroud, just given the short term appeal of what
I
Burrow,
agree.
depending on what your team needs or whatever. But I don't know. For me, I'm not ready to vault Stroud, who doesn't run, all the way up to quarterback 5 in Dynasty or 4 in Dynasty. Like I have him at 7 because of his athletic limitations. That's pretty much the
Yeah,
only reason why. Because all of these
fair.
guys are elite passers or elite quarterbacks to some degree. So it's not like I could say, oh, Stroud is just that much more elite than these guys at his age,
I
which
mean,
he is,
the-
relative to their career paths. Like he's been unbelievable to start his career. But at the same time, like he's already giving you great fantasy production, and these guys can like do it in different ways because they can run, like
fair.
Lamar Jackson, for example. But the
I mean,
age, if you wanted Stroud over Lamar because you're in a rebuild, like I'm not going to blame you. Like I think that's fair. So maybe you're right. Like maybe Lawrence and Lawrence and Stroud
the,
do belong in the same tier, because you could make the argument depending on your team situation. But for me, I think in a vacuum, Lamar Jackson should be worth more on the open market, given the production
the
premium he gives you, because his ceiling is 2 to 3 points per game
well,
higher than CJ Stroud's.
well, the only concern I have about it is because I agree from a point scoring production standpoint, but then at the same time, I feel like we're kind of baking in the fact that Lamar is older in this equation here. I'm kind of looking at like how we were valuing Justin Herbert in the offseason, where he didn't really run the ball last year, quarterback 11 finish, and that was in his 3rd season. He was still a top 5 guy across the industry. I feel like we kind of have to show that type of respect to a guy like CJ Stroud, because realistically, what's the huge difference between what we thought about Herbert in the offseason versus what we think about Stroud now? Assuming that, I mean, like Stroud's going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, there's no reason to believe he won't be a superstar quarterback.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. And I mean, I have, like I said, I had a mini tier behind those top 3. In terms of like
For sure.
like what the trade value would be. I have it as listed 3 first rounders for Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, and Lamar Jackson, 2 first rounders plus for CJ Stroud and Trevor Lawrence. And I think maybe you're
Fair.
convincing me that they should be 3 first round assets as well.
Yeah, no, that's definitely fair. Again, that's why we do this. We talk about it in front of the viewers, just kind of like, gauge and compare and stuff. And I mean, like that's the beauty of Dynasty fantasy football, is that it's such a liquid market that things like this are going to change in an instant. I mean, it's funny how if we had this exact discussion prior to the season, like every narrative would basically be like different in some sort of capacity.
Yeah. Jay Dollar Sign says Kincaid / McBride projections when Ertz and Knox return. So
Uh,
which one of these 2 tight ends are you more scared of? Knox or
McBride,
Ertz?
McBride. Oh, I'm more scared
Like
of
the
Ertz.
veterans. Like which one are you more scared of for the
I'm,
person right now?
I'm more scared of Ertz.
You're more scared of Ertz than you are of Knox?
I'm more scared of Ertz because at least Ertz showed when he was on the field this year, he was commanding targets. Like Knox, even when he was on the field, wasn't productive.
That's fair, but Knox and Josh Allen are best friends. So that's what
I mean,
scares me a little bit. Like I know it's a stupid narrative, but like honestly, I think just the snaps alone will take away from Dalton Kincaid.
for
I
what
mean,
it's
Kincaid
worth,
is, I believe, or sorry, Knox is eligible to come back, I believe, after next week, if I'm not mistaken. So I am a little bit concerned about that, but I think
I
you're
mean,
still talking about a top 6 tight end for both of these guys, to be honest, until I see
yeah.
otherwise. Like I'm more pessimistic on McBride, but I still think he's a good option.
I mean, the thing with Dawson Knox is he had 102 yards in 7 games. It's like, even if he's getting snaps, like he's not getting the ball, and Dalton Kincaid's not going
Right,
to
but
lose
it's
snaps,
real.
I don't
It's
think.
nobody's arguing that Knox will be fantasy relevant or take targets
Fair.
away. It's just more so what he does to the snap share and the overall usage. And that's
Fair, fair.
probably the same case to be made with McBride. But like you said, maybe McBride is more than just snaps and usage. Maybe it's actual targets being taken away from him. In the case with Ertz there. Carlos says, "Sup guys, down 16. I have Mahomes, Kelsey versus Swift. So I mean, the Mahomes Kelsey stack should get that done for you. I'd say 85% chance you win that because
Kelsey gets us alone.
Can cover 16 points, and then you just need Mahomes to outscore Swift.
Kelsey gets us alone, and then if Mahomes doesn't outscore Swift, I would be shocked. So I think you got that.
Yeah, it would have to be a pretty big train wreck of a game from the Chiefs offense for you not to get this, which would be shocking there. This is an interesting question here. IDUP says, what do you think about the depth of the 2024 class? Will late first have more value than compared to previous years? Because this is funny that he brings this up because I actually expressed concern about this coming into the year where I was like, dude, I'm worried. Like, what happens if Malik Neighbors doesn't hit? What happens if, we don't get a third quarterback that's going to be a first round prospect? And literally, other than the running back class being a little bit suspect,
which has turned up since.
Yeah, exactly. Which has gotten better since. TreVeyon Henderson especially looks like he's going to be a bona fide top 6 to 8 dynasty rookie draft pick. And, Braylon Allen's been doing his thing, and he's of course very young, so a lot of people are going to love him in the offseason for that reason. Yes, Trey late Benson. First will absolutely have more value than 2022 late first and 2023 late first, to answer your question. 2021 late first, I mean, you were getting Devontae Smith in that area of the draft. So, I mean, I don't know if it's going to be quite that valuable, but it could be comparable. So, the 2021 class, I think, is a very good comparison for this draft class, to be honest.
Have you seen how ludicrous Blake Corum's numbers are? So, for the record, he's not as efficient as he was last year, a little bit more wear and tear on the tires, but the guy has 20 rushing touchdowns in 10 games, or 11 games.
Yeah, the class, the running back class is going to be your early second rounders. If you need running backs, you're going to have a ball because that's where they're all going to go, I would imagine. Man. What do you think about this? The 2024 class is a carbon copy of 2021, right?
Yes.
You have the Lawrence Fields with Caleb Williams and Drake May. You have the Pitts with Brock Bowers. You have the running backs, the class was probably better. Travis Etienne, Najee Harris, and Javonte Williams. But TreVeyon Henderson and Braylon Allen and Raheem Sanders, assuming he's healthy, or Trey Benson or Blake Corum, whoever kind of emerges, I think that's comparable. And I actually think the, running back 1 to 6 in its entirety might be better in this class than it was in 2021 because we were lacking guys outside of those top 3. And the wide receiver class, I mean, you got your Harrisons, your Chase, your Neighbors is your Waddle / Smith, whatever you want to call them. And then, you got the depth that the 2021 class had with Bateman and with, Elijah Moore and Terrace Marshall and Rondell Moore and those type of prospects. So I think you're getting a pretty comparable class, honestly. And Jatavian Sanders is the Freiermuth as well. It's a pretty comparable class.
Yeah, I mean, it's
you got your Zach Wilson caliber prospects, your Trey Lance and stuff with Penix and with McCarthy and these other guys, Jaden Daniels potentially.
And the thing is that
Lance
Drake
is
Mace,
exactly the type of quarterback prospect he is, to be honest.
For who?
Jaden Daniels.
Oh, right, yeah, dude.
I mean, he's obviously older than Trey Lance was, but
better competition
they're similar.
Too.
You could almost play matchmaker with this class exactly to 2021, virtually.
Hear me out, bro. What if Jaden Daniels was a future Buck? How would you feel about that? That'd be pretty fun, eh? He's good, man.
I don't know. I'm a little nervous about just throwing Jaden Daniels on the Bucks.
Bro, but the thing is you guys know you don't have a good interior of your offensive line, so you need someone back there that can create. And I mean, Jaden Daniels,
we need a better interior of our offensive line.
That would help too. That's a good point.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's a young interior offensive line. They need to just keep investing in it and hoping those players. I mean, Gadecki looked like a train wreck bust of a pick last year, and he's played one of the better right tackles in the league now. So, I will say I trust. One thing I really do like about the Buccaneers coaching staff, and I'll be actually kind of sad if Todd Bowles gets fired, but sometimes you can't really do anything about, hirings and firings. If your team isn't performing, the coach just gets fired. They have been very good at developing players. Jason Light has drafted these guys that needed development, like Carlton Davis, like Jamel Dean, like Mike Edwards, name all these players that have needed development, and they have developed. Rashad White's taken a step forward this year, Luke Gadecki, Cade Otton, all these guys have taken steps forward this year. So I will say, the good thing about the Buccaneers coaching staff, as much as they might make some stupid decisions and stuff like that, is they have been good at developing players.
Yeah, no, for sure. By the way, for the record, Jaden Daniels at LSU since he got there has been absolutely dynamite. Last 2 years, 2022 and 2023. And I mean, he had a couple, one in particular, 2021 was his bad year. And I think 2020 prior to getting hurt was bad as well. But like we saw glimmers of hope when he was that true freshman in 2019 towards being a good quarterback. It's kind of funny because I mean, like him and Penix kind of followed a similar trend where they got off a little bit hot. Obviously, with Penix, he had that year with Indiana in the COVID year. He looked really good. With Jaden Daniels, he had that year in 2019 where people were potentially putting him up there with one of the top prospects of the 2022 class. Obviously, both go through their injuries. Now they're kind of like post-type sleepers in a sense.
Yeah, post-type sleeper is a good way to describe those guys for sure. Got a couple supers here. We got one from Cody. You got the question there. Boys, I finally lost because Cody famously went from 1-4 to 5-4 or something like that.
1-5.
Or maybe it was 0-5 potentially. I can't remember exactly. He said he needed 21 from Javonte and Addison in total letdown. Yeah, that kind of sucks. He said bloodbath right now, 6-5 teams from second place all the way to 8th place, 4 playoff teams. So yeah, definitely a very tight league that you got going on there, Cody.
Yeah.
Tanker JJ when he comes back. Come on now, dude. Don't be asking this question. It's Justin Jefferson, man. Like, come on now.
Yeah, dude,
I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I'm playing quarterback. It's Justin Jefferson. Don't care. Josh Dobbs is more than capable.
Yeah.
Okay, let me go back up to where we were at here. So, Jason, I want to try and actually get through all the questions if possible. Good luck, Martino. I need Kelsey less than 1088. We good. Debating between keeping depth and ride out roster into the playoffs or overpay to get Kelsey, maximize starting roster. I would say if you're in a shallow league, it's almost always a good idea to go overpay for the stud as opposed to keeping the depth. So if you need the depth because it's a deep league and you start 3 wide receivers and 2 flexes and your team is, in a position where you have injuries or something like that, then fine, keep the depth. But I would say if it's a shallow league or you have like so much depth that you can consolidate, go out and get Travis Kelce.
For sure.
Why is Hollywood Brown ass? He's not ass. He'll figure things out. I'm not really worried about him, to be honest.
He's been ass. There's a difference.
He's been pretty bad recently, but I think
he's been pretty ass. Yeah, agreed. Yo, what's up, Spicy? What's up, Spicy? How do you think Garrett Wilson shakes out with Tim Boyle?
My answer to that question is the same way he's been shaking out with Zach Wilson. He's going to get a lot of targets, and none of them are going to be efficient.
Yeah, which Anthony Richardson.
Thoughts on Metcalf and McBride for Andrews in the 104-105 in Dynasty? That is a fucking steal and a half, bro. I would take individually either of those assets for the package.
Yes, what
like
are we doing
people are going crazy with Trey McBride, dude. Like, I get it,
know
dude.
What you're referencing.
The guy was a good prospect and he's been productive, but he's tight end 7 in Dynasty at absolute maximum, right? Like he's not a top 3 Dynasty tight end right now.
You can't put him in the discussion with Andrews. I understand Andrews is older and Andrews is out for the year, but like you're completely playing for the hypothetical in that scenario. If Trey McBride, I mean, we just mentioned, if Zach Ertz comes back and Trey McBride just stops producing, like I don't care how talented you think he is, the market is going to react to that. And you have to base market reactions and volatility into your analysis. I just feel like a lot of people.
And Trey McBride simply does not have the track record to say that Zach Ertz is just not going to affect his value. Like we see 3 down games here from Trey McBride. He's going back down to Dynasty tight end 12, and you just got screwed in this trade. So Andrews like way better, way more secure asset in the 104/105. I mean, like you're getting I've said this class might have 5 Bijans in it. You got guaranteed shot at Malik Neighbors or better. Like I'm telling you, that's going to be a great trade for you. So great move there, Ethan.
Real quick,
how you doing, my boy, Mr. Blue? What's going on?
Hey, what's up? For the record on that point, there could be a period where 3 weeks from now, McBride keeps producing at an elite level where we change our tune. Because that's what you have to do in Dynasty. You have to react to new information, except you can't overreact to the information. There's a big difference with a 3-game sample size versus a 7 or an 8-game sample size.
Yeah. It's properly reacting is what we're trying to do here.
Correct.
We're trying to appropriately react to anything that happens. Spicy Out says, suffered a lot of injuries this year in a keeper league, and I'm not going to make playoffs. So do I trade Diggs and Swift for Justin Jefferson?
Keeper, yeah.
If you're not going to make the playoffs, go out and get Justin Jefferson, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not keeping Swift and you can go out and get, I mean, the guy could have me throwing to him. He's probably going to be the 101 in redraft next year.
The whole trade deadline discussion around dynasty leagues that we talked about
Yeah,
already. I think it actually applies way more to keeper leagues than it does to
I
dynasty
agree.
leagues. Like I think keeper leagues is really the place where people will just like load up their roster for
Yeah,
keeper purposes.
because players that aren't getting kept, they could care less how much value they sell them off for.
Yeah,
To be honest.
exactly. In dynasty, it's obviously you would be keeping those players, so it's way different. Gerald says, your thoughts on Josh Downs rest of the season. I think you're talking about, weekly wide receiver 3 flex play. He's definitely a great player. We know that about him, but it's still not a great offense. So Josh Downs probably limited to there's 37 wide receivers, it feels like, that are comparable to Josh Downs from a fantasy production standpoint, which is true because he's like a 11 to 13 point, maybe 15 point at the absolute highest end point per game type of option. And there's like literally 30 receivers I could say that about. So IDUP says, should landing spots be a bigger part of rookie evaluation going forward? I would say they're already a pretty large part of it, at least by the market standard. Example would be JSN landing spot, who seem to be lower on him now. So again, I will, maybe this is a hot take, but I have no doubt in my mind that if JSN was an elite player right off the bat, his landing spot wouldn't mean shit.
Yeah, I mean,
Like if JSN had come in and looked like Justin
if he was
Jefferson
Puka
or something
Nacua,
like that, it literally wouldn't. Like DK Metcalf would just get less targets. And like there's one football. If somebody's open all the time, they're going to get the ball. So wide receivers, should landing spots be a bigger part of rookie evaluation? Probably not. I actually think they're overrated, to be honest, from a wide receiver standpoint.
yeah,
But from a running back standpoint, competition for touches and all that
matters.
stuff, yeah, it definitely matters for sure. And same with, quarterbacks as well, because, we're seeing it play out in Carolina right now, what a bad landing spot can do to a great prospect like Bryce Young. So yeah, landing spots matter, but I would say wide receivers and tight ends probably are the least important in terms of where they go. I don't think it's, just a victim of circumstance that Jackson Smith-Njigba isn't performing. I think Jackson Smith-Njigba might not be as good as some people thought. He's not better than Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. He never was, to be honest. So people that thought that just looked at the box score at Ohio State and thought he was better.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, like,
we're also seeing what CJ Stroud can do with a slot receiver as well in the NFL. So I think it makes a lot of sense why JSN was really productive.
By the way, real quick, I mean, it's funny because we kind of felt like isolated a little bit for preferring Addison to JSN. Like people were kind of like, oh, how could you do that? And it's like, man, like instead of just criticizing right away, let's just see how shit plays out. See how it plays out. I don't know. That was my little rant.
Yeah. The other thing too is like listen to what we say, why we prefer the player too. Because a lot of the time it was like Jordan Addison, tail of the tape comment section was immediately like heard me say he was wide receiver 1. And they're just, now why, how could you have him over JSN or whatever? And I did kind of pivot to some degree because I recognized there was some risk with Addison. I don't think Addison's like been outstanding. He's been really good, I would say, but he hasn't been outstanding like elite rookie season. So that it's going to see, like, we're going to see how it plays out the rest of these guys' careers and going into their second year. I would imagine when people go back and look at the numbers, they're going to talk themselves back into Jackson Smith-Njigba and maybe talk themselves out of Jordan Addison, which always happens with Jordan Addison, by the way. When he's not on the field playing football is when people start to get lower on him.
Well, the thing is, that's funny is, do you think there's still people there that have like JSN over like Drake London in their rankings?
Oh, I guarantee there's JSN truthers that haven't moved him since they understood like, oh, I understood that JSN wasn't going to get on the field his rookie season. It's like he's on the field and he's commanding some targets, but he's also not doing a ton with them, and they're also pretty low value targets. So
he's Jarvis Landry right now, man.
Yeah, it's not even like, because CeeDee Lamb had a little bit of that his rookie year, and Jalen Waddle did as well, but they were better target commanders and they did more with their targets.
I mean, CeeDee Lamb walked into a receiver core with Amari Cooper, with Michael Gallup, with
Tony
it
was Pollard, a comparable situation. I think it was very comparable.
But that's what I mean. Like with Tony Pollard and Ezekiel in the backfield, like he walked into a situation with a crowded room, like you said, similar to Seattle. Doesn't mean we just saw more. We saw more at yards. He had almost 1,000 receiving yards as a rookie with those guys on the team. With Dalton Schultz as well.
Without Dak, too, for half the season. Yeah.
With Dalton Schultz as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Or was was it Schultz or was it Jarwin that year? It was one of those two. Regardless.
I think it was Schultz. It might have been Jarwin, actually. I'm not sure. Carlos says Charbonnet top 12 with no K9. So we did get a report today that K9's not going to IR, which is pretty crazy that they had to say that. To me, that says he's going to be out for a couple games at least, though, if he's not going to IR.
Sounds at least 3.
Yeah,
because
I mean,
IR is
top
usually
12,
4.
like that was the timeline that the fantasy docs gave. I think, yeah, Charbonnet, maybe not top 12 because no teams are on bye this week, but I will say he's probably top 15 to 18 running back this week in my rankings,
Yeah,
right?
no,
If
100%.
Kenneth Walker's not playing, I mean, it's the 49ers,
The
but I mean, Rashad
RB2
White
for
just did
sure.
well against them.
RB2 for sure. I mean, for what it's worth with Rashad White, I always feel like I'm a hating on the guy, but I will give him credit. He is the archetype of running back that would succeed against the Niners,
Well, so is
especially
Sharps,
the
though,
way
man.
you used
Sharps
them.
has been used as a receiver. He had what, like
But
6 targets this past week? Like he's been used out of the backfield as a receiver.
But more
as
so
well.
the speed element, because the Niners are a big physical team that you don't want to match with up front. Whereas with Rashad White, it's like you guys weren't going to match with him up front anyway. So let's get this guy in space and just feed him in the screen game. Like, how many
Yeah.
screens do you guys run against the Niners?
Oh, a shit ton. Like a shit ton. And it wasn't even just White, too. Trey Palmer had a bunch of them as well.
Yeah, for real. How do we feel about Pacheco under 48.5 rushing? I think that's a strong bet because the Eagles are a nightmare to run against.
Hypothetically, I like it, but Pacheco is the type of running back that breaks off 130-yard run and you just torch that line. Like that's I don't like betting unders on rushing yards unless they're Joe Mixon type running backs, like the guys that don't break long runs. Those are the types of running backs I prefer to bet unders of,
like Alexander Madison.
Yeah,
He's
like
nice
those,
to bet
like
under.
when those types of guys have bad matchups, I know those guys aren't screwing me with a long run. Isaiah Pacheco can absolutely screw you with a long run. That's why I don't really like betting unders on rushing yards for guys like that.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, I think we can wrap up pretty soon in the next few minutes because it's almost 8:15.
Yeah, okay, let's get through a couple more questions here. Mystic Flames says 12-team Dynasty Superflex, start 11, have Hurts, Kyler, and Lawrence, and Bryce. Jesus. Which one should I sell for cross position? Rebuilding, have 2024 first, 0 running back. So, I mean, you're going to be able to contribute some running back production with your rookie picks. But given the market value of Trevor Lawrence and Bryce Young specifically, I would not sell them because I think they are probably you're gonna sell low on those guys. So Kyler Murray is actually the one that stands out to me as the one that I would maybe sell now that he's back and now that he's fully healthy.
Can Kyler get you
At the
Chase
same
right
time,
now?
like if you're rebuilding, there is no rush to sell any of these guys.
Yeah, can Kyler get you JJ right now? Can Kyler get you Chase right now? Because I mean, that's the only way I'd.
Yeah, that's
I
the
mean,
type of pivot I would be looking
maybe
to make as well. But if you're not getting that type of value for Kyler and you're not getting that type of
like,
value for Lawrence either, like, or, Bryce can't fetch you Garrett Wilson or something like that, like, I would say that you probably need to hold off on those guys because, I mean, Bryce specifically, like, he's a perfect quarterback 3 for your team construction because you already have elite quarterbacks. So he would be the least likely for me to sell. And Hurts would be probably the second least likely just because he's just such a great option. So it would come down to Lawrence and Kyler, but I would say Kyler would be the one that I would maybe consider shopping, depending on what your league market values him at.
For sure.
Heard Taylor won't be there. Eagles Sports Talk said she
Oh.
won't be there due to concert. Okay, interesting.
The Eagles are happy about that, eh?
Yeah, literally 12-team PPR, 5-5. I can start 3 wide receivers in a flex. I have Stroud, Swift, Javonte, Tyreek, Hollywood, Dell, Andrews, Kincaid, benches, Fields, K1. I mean, so Bijan should not be on your bench for starters. Also, why do you have 3 quarterbacks? Fields, K1, and Stroud? You got 3 quarterbacks that are going to be a headache to start each and every week because they're all relatively similar. I don't know if your trade deadline hasn't passed yet, but I would try and make some trades. He's asking for moves. So I'm assuming go find a quarterback needy team and offer them CJ Stroud plus, let's see, what do you got here? CJ Stroud plus Javonte Williams. Does that get you up to an elite running back? Potentially like a Jonathan Taylor?
Maybe, but that would be tough.
Maybe Swift. Maybe you could take Swift because he's a little bit sketchy. You could take CJ Stroud and DeAndre Swift to it. Like maybe you could sell the Tank Dell CJ Stroud stack and get after a better wide receiver as well.
Yeah, that would probably I would agree.
Okay,
we got
last
a quick
question
super from Mike.
We'll sign it off here.
Quick super from Mike. He says, "Would you package who would you package for Keenan or CD? The teams are out of playoffs, and those are the only important players on their teams. My wide receivers are Puka, Garrett Wilson, Calvin Ridley, Deontay Johnson, Jahan Dotson, and Christian Watson. Well, I mean, if it's just packaging wide receivers, like, can Puka plus Ridley get you CD? Can Puka plus
Dotson, probably. Puka and Dotson was the one that stood out to me for CD.
I doubt someone takes that. I honestly.
Well, you could throw on a pick as well if this is a dynasty. I don't know if this is a dynasty or a redraft.
I'm assuming
it's
a redraft.
I'm assuming you're assuming it's a redraft?
Yes.
But it says the teams are out of the playoffs, and those are the only important players on their teams, which makes me think it's dynasty.
Out of the playoffs, and they're only owned. That means.
Well, why would they be selling their players if they're out of the playoffs in redraft?
because they might want a package.
I guess, but I don't know. Let us know, Mike, if that's a redraft or a dynasty. But if it's dynasty, I would say Puka and Dotson.
It's
for
redraft.
CD. It's redraft. Okay, so go back to the team real quick. Garrett Wilson plus somebody can that get you to Keenan maybe?
I would
Garrett Wilson plus Deontay can that get you to Keenan potentially? That would be like it's difficult because you got your value doesn't really line up with this guy's team, unfortunately.
I would give Puka or Wilson plus Ridley for CD. Easily.
Yeah, you could do that as well.
Yeah. Try to do that. Try to go get that done there, Mike. But either way, I mean, we are at 8:15. The game, I believe, is starting right now. I don't have the stream pulled up, but I believe it should be kicking off. So with that being said, go Chiefs -2.5. Lock it in. Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid off by. Travis Kelce wants to make an impression with the in-laws, because I believe the in-laws are still there for the in-laws. They're dating. They're not even married. I don't know why I'm saying it like that, but you know what I mean. Regardless,
yeah, for sure. I have the Chiefs this game going under 46 points. I don't think this is gonna be a high scoring game, so I like the under in this one. I also had some other bets there. The official bet that I ended up going with was Devontae Smith over alternate receiving yards 70 plus, Travis Kelce alternate receiving yards 80 plus, the under hitting in the game, and then I also had Isaiah Pacheco under 16.5 receiving yards as well. So that's what I ended up going with. That was I think a plus 2,900 for that bet. So $20 to win, 400 or something like that. So, or 500. I actually didn't even remember doing the math. Anyways, that's what I ended up rolling with. You guys, I mean, it's too late to tail it, I suppose. But anyways, good luck in your matchups. Hopefully you guys get a Monday Night Miracle, and hopefully whoever needed less than 11 points from Travis Kelce, he puts up a dud tonight. So peace out, fellas. We'll talk to you soon.